everybody, it's Andrea Mercier, aka Ann Loam, and welcome to my studio. Today is lesson 5 for the Let's Begin Painting with Acrylics. And I'm very excited because today we're going to be doing abstract art. I spoke to Gina. She had the same struggles as I did with color for the landscape. However, hers turned out really cool as well. So I told her that this class we would do abstract because it's looser and definitely more fun, especially for me since that's what I do. And then I told her we would try the landscape again, and what we're going to actually do for the next class is recreate this landscape. And the reason why I picked this one was because there's very little green, and the greens that are there are kind of yellowy greens, which we can reproduce. Gray purple mountains, which we can definitely reproduce, and kind of a rusty wooden. These are colors that we are capable of reproducing, and so this is what we're going to do next class. But this class is going to be abstract. Now, I have talked in the past about that I'm an abstract impressionist artist. I'm not a realistic artist. So I wanted to talk a little bit about what that is before we get into the fun stuff. So abstract art uses visual language of shape, form, color, and line to create a composition which may exist with a degree of independence from visual references in the world, which basically means, as I say, is I use color and shape and movement to create something that doesn't necessarily represent anything from reality, which is independence from visual references in the world. That's what that means. So for me, especially my fluid acrylic pouring is all about how the color interacts, what shapes the colors create, and what the audience feels when they look at a piece of my art. Do they see something? Do they feel something? Does it make them curious? Do they want to ask questions? And for me, that's very important and probably the foundation of my artwork. Now, impressionistic art is a style in which the artist captures the image of an object as someone would see if they just caught a glimpse of it. It's just an impression. So Monet was definitely one of the impressionists. So was Renoir, Edgar Degas, and Paul Cézanne. So what they did was they didn't do a lot of detail. They made, patches of colors. And then when you looked at it quickly, you could see that it was a lake with a boat, or you could see that it was a tree in a forest. It wasn't detailed. So between the abstract and the impressionist, that's kind of where I live. I can create images abstractly, but have little details that would give you a definite idea of what I was trying to create. So that's what I do. Now, there's different types of abstract art. There was different movements, so groups of people and kind of a grassroots movement for these different ones. And the most popular ones were surrealism. Dali was definitely the godfather of surrealism. It was an avant-garde movement in art and literature that sought to release the creative potential of the unconscious mind. So really, it was about the dreamscape and what happens in alternate realities. And he was famous for his painting that had the melting clocks. Pablo Picasso started out in surrealism, and then he moved to the next form, which was Cubism. Cubism was a revolutionary new approach to representing reality. And it was invented by Pablo Picasso and a gentleman named George Braque, whose art I'm not that familiar with. And they brought a different view of subjects, usually objects or people, figures, together in the same picture, resulting in paintings that appear fragmented or abstracted. So basically what that means is they would take a 3D object, say this cup, And what they would do is they would represent all sides of the cup in one surface. So they would break it out like this, so you would see all the parts of the cup without having to walk around it. They were really good with figures, so they would have a figure, and you, even though it was a profile of the picture of the person, so you would see like the nose and the eyes, they would bend the side you couldn't see around so that you could see the whole person in a two-dimensional fashion, if that makes sense. And then there was Dadaism, which I'm not really familiar with. It was an artistic movement that was used to ridicule or make fun of the supposed meaningless of the modern world. So this is early in the 20th century. There had been World War I. A lot of people who went to World War I were completely disillusioned by the Great War, with all of the deaths and horrors and the meaninglessness of it. So these artists in particular were trying to express how they felt about this time period in modern day life. Again, I'm not as familiar with Dadaism as I am with Surrealism and Cubism. I'm going to have all the links to these different kind of movements down in the dibbly-doo so that you can go and look and see if something attracts you to it. The last famous one was Fauvism. It was a group of early 20th century modern artists whose works emphasized painterly qualities and strong color over realistic values. So they would paint blue trees and yellow sky and orange grass. It was a way of painting realistically but with the wrong colors, or painting impressionistically but with opposite colors, complementary colors. It was an interesting movement. It was a very bright and colorful movement. And the guy who was most known for this was Henri Matisse. And there was a couple of other guys, André Derain and George Braque again. I'm not familiar with their work at all, so I can't speak of it. And then there was a last few, there was some other abstract art forms which I am totally unfamiliar with. Suprematism, art informel, neoplasticism, and distilge. I have no idea what any of those are, but I will link it down in the dibbly-doo if you would like to find out more about these abstract techniques. All right, so that's enough for the lesson part of this particular video. Let's get down to some fun. So for me, abstract is all about color, shape, and movement. So for this first exercise, I have put the yellow, red, blue, and white out on my palette paper. I didn't use black for this exercise. It'll be for the next one. What we're going to do is I'm going to show you the technique that made me fall in love with abstract art. So I'm just going to take a piece of the canvas paper on the white side. Oh, and I'll put the palette. We're going to use this for the other project. All right, I'm just going to tape this down simply because I'm going to be putting lots and lots of paint on, and since this is a piece of paper, I just don't want it to move. So when I fell in love with abstract art was actually in my mixed media class in college. I had a professor named Amy Shizzle who told me that it was okay to create art that had no realism to it. And I was shocked by that. And she encouraged me to try some abstract art in my acrylic painting class, and we had a class of abstract art, and what I did was I just put in tons of just swirls of color, and it was actually one of my best scored pieces of art. My teacher gave me a 15 out of 15, and I hadn't gotten that with any of the other classes. So for this, you're going to need your palette knives. I'm going to use this one and maybe this one. You can choose any out of the pack that we had, whichever one you're more comfortable with. Actually, this one's a good one too. And basically what I did was I took, now this paint, this paint is thick enough that it will stand up on its own. You can get some 3D-ness to it. And pretty much what I did was I just started putting on color. Now I had more than 3 colors when I did my project. I had, oh my, I had 20 or 30 colors, and I just made a whole bunch of very random grooves of paint. And basically what I was trying to do was let the colors do what they wanted to do. I didn't want to decide what the colors wanted to do. I wanted the colors to mix as they wanted. I'm wiping this off. I have a wet rag, and I'm wiping it off every time. You don't have to. You can certainly mix more if you want. You can mix the colors more. So what I'm trying to do is just find a place where the color doesn't exist and add it. So I need yellow there, like that. So this is a very playful type of art. And again, you can, if you wanted to mix the colors and make purple and orange and green, you could add those to it. This is just a quick demonstration. I want Gina to, she doesn't have to fill the whole page, but I want her to at least try it, get comfortable with the palette knife, see how it works. You can cut paint with it, you can pile it up, all sorts of wonderful things. Now see, this one I'm going to be going over the red. I'm going to go back over the red again like that. I need some white here. Definitely need red here. So this was the painting that I did. If I can find a picture of it, I will cut it into the video for you so that you can see it. So you need white here, like that, and then some blue here, and yellow. And I leave that 3D-ness to it. Now, of course, it's going to take forever for this to dry, but that is basically what I did. I covered the entire canvas with 20 different colors. I had pink and black and purple, and I let it dry for a week. And then I took it in to my professor, and he was so proud of me because I was so anal at that time and I was still trying to get perfection. And I just let it go and let the paint and the colors do whatever they wanted to do. And so I believe that's why I got my 15 out of 15. So this technique is just, I have seen, I'll just do it down here. I've seen one artist who painted the background black and then took kind of a yellow white. It's not going to work with white. I'm going to have to use the blue. But he was using white, and he did an entire canvas. I think it was like 24 by 36 inches, and he made little swirls of the same color over the black. Little swirls. Little swirls. Like that. And the entire painting was covered by these little ridges of curls. that's a perfectly acceptable type of art. If you want to just talk about how the colors and the materials work with each other, you can, again, you can mix on your canvas paper if you want, but it's more about, see that really, let me zoom in on that. Let me zoom in on that. Oh, I have to remove the tape. I want you to see this part here. See, when I mixed the paint colors together, they've created their own thing. It's not orange, it's not red, it's not yellow, it's this movement of color together. Let's try that again with the blue. I'll just go over it. I'll take some yellow and just go over the blue. And you see how in here there's that greenish tinge? Let's try it with a little bit of red. And then a little bit of white. See how that all works together? It says nothing in reality, but someone could sit and look at this and just find it very reassuring. They could find it cool and interesting. That's what abstract art is about. It's about the audience finding something within themselves through the artwork. So I'll just do a couple of other little things on here and then we'll get to our major project. You can, actually I want to show you here. So here's your palette knife. There's things that you can do with this. You can cut a little roll off. Now the thicker the paint, the tighter the roll. So you can smear it. You can pile it up in a ridge. You can come back, as you know, you can mix colors with your palette knife. Your palette knife is almost like, it's not quite a pencil because it's not quite a drawing tool, but you can get some real cool subtleties with a palette knife, especially because of the different shapes. See, this one I can get a nice narrow shape, but then I can take this nice thick one, cut out some paint, make some sharp, whoops, my paper is moving. You can make some nice thin lines. Oops, that's why you need to roll the paint to the top. Let's try that again. So I have the paint right on the edge. You can make nice little lines and then spread it out. We're actually going to use this technique when we redo the mountain. We're going to do the mountain with the palette knife. Get a little bit more here, get some red on there. You can cut with it. You can get lines with it. Palette knives are awesome. And of course, when you haven't mixed your colors, you get this really cool, see that? That's cool. So your palette knife is an awesome tool that gives you a totally different look than a brush. So Gina, I want you to take a piece of the canvas paper and just play with the palette knife, play with the colors, see what kind of results you get. I want to see your canvas paper after you've played with it, just to see some of the techniques that you tried. All right, let me get this out of the way and we are going to start our project for today. Oh, let me clean that off. Put that over there. All right, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to paint this black. The whole canvas panel is going to be painted black. I'm just going to take the biggest brush, a little bit of damp, some paper towel, just put a little bit of water on here to help move the black paint. We want to hide all of the white. That's what we're going to do first. So I have my Mars black. Woo! I'm almost down to the end of the tube. There we go. Let's start with that. So we want to completely cover up the white. You might need to do 2 coats. I'm going to fast forward through this because it's going to be boring. So there we go. I have brushed it in both directions to make sure I get in all of the crevices of the canvas panel. There we go. No, I like it better this way. It looks smoother. And then you're going to let this completely dry. You can help it with a hair dryer a little bit or a heat gun, but you don't want to force it too much or it might crack. But let this completely dry and then we'll come back and we'll do the second part of the project. Okay, so here we are. This is dry. It still has a little bit of tack to it, so that's when I talk about the difference between dried and cured. This is dry, but it would take another couple of hours till it was completely cured to plastic where it wouldn't be tacky, but that's okay. As long as it's dry to the touch and you're not getting any paint up and you're not smearing it on the canvas panel, you are good. So what we're going to do is we're going to get some masking tape. So you can use masking tape or you can use green or blues painter's tape. I don't have any. I've used it on all my projects, so I only have masking tape. When we put the tape down on the canvas panel, if it sticks a little bit, it's okay because we'll be able to come back and reapply a little bit of the black. What you want to avoid is putting it down too lightly and the other paints that we put on get underneath the paint. We want some nice crisp lines. So it's better for you to aggressively apply the tape, and if it pulls up a little bit of the black, it's okay because we can fix it. Then not put it down firmly enough and you get uncrisp lines. Now the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create a border all the way around, and I'm just going to let it go over. It'll also hold the painting panel in place. And you can use, this is a 1/2-inch tape. If you have a thicker tape, you can mix and match. You can use some thin tape, you can use some thicker tape, whatever your heart desires, because this is abstract and you can do whatever you want. So let me just do that. Now it's nice if the lines are straight, but if you decide you want curved lines, you can do that as well. Well, as we know, I struggle sometimes if it's not, things aren't perfectly centered or perfectly straight. I do fight that a lot. But again, it's completely up to you. So now I will have a black border. And this is where the fun begins. So you're going to start putting tape wherever you want, and you want to make some shapes. So I'm going to make, there we go, some shapes. Now this is a very small canvas, only 9 inches by 12 inches, so you might not be able to make a lot of shapes, but if this technique is something that you fall in love with, you can absolutely do this on bigger canvas panels. I find that this technique is easier on a canvas panel as opposed to a canvas, just because you can really press into it and you have firm contact. That's not to say you can't do it on a real canvas that moves. I just find it easier on canvas panels, and you can get canvas panels in huge sizes now. So I'm going to do the rest of this in fast forward, and then we'll come back. Okay, let's zoom in here. There we go. So here's our surface. You can see that I had to cut some and make, add some tape to make sharp lines. That's all good. Just make sure that it's down nice. Now we can do this one of 3 ways. You can add color on with a brush, you can add color on with a palette knife, or you can do both, whichever you want to do. And basically what I want you to do is take all of this paint and put it over these spots in whatever manner you want. You can use your fingers, you can do whatever you want, as long as you cover up the black. That's the only objective to this, is to cover up the black. So for this little spot here, I am going to use a brush because I'll be able to get in there. And you just want to make sure it's thick enough that it covers up the black. I don't care if it's smooth. I don't care if it has a pattern. I just want to cover up the black. And that's what I'm doing here. All right, I'm going to wipe that off my brush. Take a palette knife. So here I'm going to add some red, and I'm going to add some blue, and let it mix a little bit. Add some white. So the only thing you want to be careful of is that you don't push against the tape too much. You want to kind of go from the middle of the tape out as much as you can so that you don't push the paint underneath. But other than that, you are free to do whatever you wish. I'm going to do mine in fast forward. I just want you to take color and texture as thick as you want and add stuff, add some movement, add some interesting shapes and swirls, and just do whatever you want and cover up all that black. Ooh, that's kind of cool. I like that. All right. So I will go in fast forward and we'll talk about it on the other side. Okay, so here we are, we have it covered. This is the hardest part. I've learned over the years that leaving the tape until the paint is dry is a bad idea, because then you pull the paint and the paint turns plastic, and then you can't get the tape off and it makes a mess. So we're going to take the tape off now, and I know this looks like a mess, and it's supposed to. It's a very colorful, artistic mess. So taking off the tape, just be as careful as you can. Now you see where that went underneath the tape? That's okay, because we are going to, once everything is dry, we'll repair it with black. Oh, there we go. So just kind of just pull everything straight up. Just as carefully as you can. Oh, there we go. Done. Whew. Pretty cool, eh? So let's take a close look at that. All right. So right here, I'm just gonna nudge that paint in so that I keep my crisp line. I'll have to fix that, but that looks pretty cool. I love this part right here. I don't know if you can see that it's very 3D. Now this will take several days to dry. So this part right here, I'm just gonna tilt it inward. It's just hanging over the line a bit. Same with right here. Just gonna push it in a bit. There we go. So this will completely cure. It'll probably take 2 days. And then what you're gonna do is come back with your shader brush, and with black you're just gonna go redo the line just here and here where it's smeared a little bit, and it will fix it up. So there you go. Welcome to abstract painting. So if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe right here so you can follow me and Gina on our artful journey with acrylic paints. If you have any questions, please put them down in the dibbly-doo. I really appreciate you being here. It's always better when you're here. Bye! Just a last photo before I go. I went back with the black paint and fixed up the edges, and now it looks fantastic. fantastic.